What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing a 2-round 2025 NFL mock draft post Senior Bowl without trades, with one exception, and that is Myles Garrett. If you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. It has not been updated for the post Senior Bowl. I'm still going through and making sure all that is updated before I end up actually dropping my own draft board, which is going to be out for you guys very soon. So super excited to be able to launch that premium content. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that as well. It'll have a full breakdown on exactly what I think of every single player. So super excited for that. But also, below the board is a nice little scrolling ticker that shows you everything you need to know, but the link tree is the easiest way to get to both our sponsor as well as to my X page. The X page, I end up posting there all the time. It's free, and you guys get to see all 22 clips that support my decisions below my face. But on top of that, I also have the sponsor of the show, UnderDog Fantasy. They have some special promos going on right now, including if you are a new member, you guys get like a free Travis Kelce pick and also a no sweat pick, which I believe, not mistaken, you guys need to read the rules on this, but it lowers a lot of the liability, so it makes it a lot easier on the big day to be able to put down a nice little deposit and be able to have a nice little fun time without feeling all the stress of being able to have to lose all of it. But play responsibly, play legally, and use the code HAILMARY when you do sign up. It sends me $60, full transparency, but also I enjoy using the app as it is, so hopefully you guys do as well. Those of y'all who have used it, you guys seem to enjoy it, so thank you guys again for doing that. So let's get into this, and let's discover the trade for Myles Garrett. And so, obviously, we're going to be tossing in Myles Garrett right here. Let's not even focus on I'm not going to like stress myself out with like thinking whether they actually have all these players correct, because I know PFF sometimes is really behind on updating the rosters, but I think there's a couple targets, and we'll continue discussing this throughout the offseason until that move happens. But I think there are a couple teams that have the draft capital and desire and, fit the criteria to be able to fill the role that Garrett is wanting while also providing the value that the Cleveland Browns would want. Dark horse team would be the Bears. He says he wants to go to contender. I do think that with Ben Johnson, with the organization that they've constructed, along with a franchise quarterback, a good weaponry, and just like a really solid defense, they kind of are one of those edge rusher and maybe a tackle / guard away from being a legitimate contender. So that could easily, and I mean easily, be a great option for both Chicago as well as Cleveland. I know it would kind of kick Ben Johnson in the balls to like not have his number 10 overall pick, but I do think that's a very possible outcome. We talk about the moves that the Bears can make at 10, they can go after an offensive lineman, but most likely with Braxton Jones being healthy, they're going to play guard in the short run. So do you want to spend that number 10 overall pick on an interior offensive lineman? The answer is probably not as good as, not as much as you want to spend it on Myles Garrett, right? You have the 2 second-round picks as well, but also if you want to go an edge rusher at pick 10, do you want to get Myles Garrett at the cost of a second-round pick, or do you want to go after one of the edge rushers at pick 10? It's something that you will have to weigh yourself. And, I'm actually debating going with the Bears move right here because I've seen it done so many times. And I do think the Bears are going to be aggressive with 2 second-round picks that they essentially got free from they got one of them free from the Bryce Young trade. So I definitely think that the Bears are a key team to look at, and super dark horse team because the Niners are somehow linked to T. Higgins. They'll find a way. You could talk about that. I don't think that's a likely option whatsoever, but it is one of those teams that could come out of nowhere. I've heard the Chargers. I'm not a big fan of the idea of him going to the Chargers. Not a team that I think is a legitimate contender at the moment with some key holes at very valuable positions, but they're still a team that I think also I trust Harbaugh to maximize the value of his picks. So I'd rather let him have the picks than him try to ring chase right out the gate. Packers are certainly one of them based on the picks they have. People try to toss Lucas Van Ness into the trade. I don't think that really provides much value for Cleveland, but it's a team that, hey, if you want a big upgrade, your pass rush is not doing too well, you fired a defensive line coach, like you obviously weren't happy with the production there. It's very possible. But the teams, so I think the top 3 teams for me when I'm thinking about like what teams, or technically top 4, it would be the stretch here from 28 to 30 in the Bears. So Lions, Commanders, Bills, and the Bears. The thing is with the Commanders, they still have a notable amount of holes on their roster, in my opinion. Like, I still think they need to fill in at least a boundary or a slot role, depending on how comfortable you are with Mikey Sainristil. I ended up seeing one of your scouts talking to Jalen Smith out of USC. He's going to be primarily a slot corner. So it does look like you guys are comfortable with Mikey on the boundary. I thought he did fairly fine. So I would say you're not screwed in that situation, But also I saw Trevor Sikkema toss in Jerzon Newton, and just going to be honest, it's an interesting idea because you're pretty much having a 1-year rental on a second round pick to be able to get, Myles Garrett. But I just don't know if the Commanders' success is easily replicable. And I hate saying that, but they're like my number 32 team coming into the year because I love Jaden. Like, he's my QB too. And I just didn't think the team would mesh together, and the coaching did such a phenomenal job. But I really do think that the Commanders, with the limited picks that they have and the holes that they do have, and, especially with, the injury to your best offensive lineman, he's going to be out probably for a notable amount of time. Like, you guys do have holes that I think you should be filling before really feeling the need to press like down on the gas pedal and go full pedal to the metal. So it really is Lions, Bills, and Bears. Those are my top 3. Bills have 2 second-round picks, right? Like, they have 56, 62. That makes it very easy if you want to do a 30, round 1, and 62. I think that's perfectly reasonable. So you could end up talking about that for them. And then for the Lions, they lack the picks, but I will say at pick 60, I'm like very intrigued on trading back all the time because I don't think there's that much need. But also, the Lions are a team where maybe Myles Garrett doesn't want to go there. You got to realize he doesn't have a no trade clause, but he has to sign a contract, right? And so it is a quasi no trade. Like, it's an informal no trade clause. And I love Detroit, and they are still a contender. But when you have so many, I believe it was 7 total assistant coaches, including the DCOC, being transferred elsewhere, there is some organizational turmoil there, which leaves me to think that the Bills as well as the Bears are the top 2 teams for this. So let me know what you think of that. That was a very long-winded way. I already know people are going to complain about it, but it's the biggest news, and I haven't been able to talk about it with you guys. And, I responded to every comment since 2021, October 2021. So, I actually value your guys' opinion on this. So please do put your opinion down below. But I'm starting to think that the Bears might be the likely option. They've been ballsy. They ended up giving Ben Johnson, what was it, a 5-year, $65 million contract. I think that's a great move. Just saying, like, be ballsy. And you have a legitimate window right now. And I will say, you have 2 second-round picks. You do not need to send both of them. And you don't need to give a future one either, in my opinion. Like, I do think that this is very, like, maybe you would give a future one. But, I mean, in that case, Ben Johnson would probably want it. I'm actually going to send him, I'll be sending him to the Buffalo Bills. I think that the Bills, based on this, like, they are later picks, so that's why I am sending so many of them. I think that's going to be super key here. And again, feel free to argue with the value, but all this stuff can be manipulated after the fact. We're going to be going with this route, and the Bills will be getting Myles Garrett. So long story short, that's where we end up here with the Tennessee Titans. This is one video, so we're going to try to keep it nice and orderly. At number 1 overall for the Titans, I will say, deep down, I want to throw a curveball off the bat and not go after QB. I just think that it's too likely, and I think Cam Ward would be the guy. They're an organization that is not happy with their quarterback situation. It's not. And I will say, I think Shedeur Sanders is a better fit for Brian Callahan. His archetype, not his talent, but the profile of player and the role that he will play, if successful, is similar to Joe Burrow. And again, not remotely the same talent level, but if you're talking about the way that they perform in a system, I think Shedeur Sanders is more closely knit to what Brian Callahan should be coaching, or what he has comfortability coaching, than Cam Ward. Cam Ward has traits that Levis as well as Willis had, and both of them failed under Brian Callahan. I've heard he has a very long leash as well. So, I mean, that's from inside sources. Again, I'm not going to confirm it, but, I will say that people who know Callahan personally, like, they say that he has a pretty long leash. So I would say maybe they could take a risk on Cam Ward, but they also could they could trade back and get Shedeur Sanders, and I think they could end up amassing draft capital with where they're at right now and end up doing a really good job there. Again, there's no trades in this. I'm going to go after Cam Ward just because I think it's the highest probability choice, but maybe not the best outcome for him. At number 2 for the Browns, again, we traded Myles Garrett, and we have that pick 62. We have that pick 30, so this is going to be a fun one for the Brownies. We're going to be going after Abdul Carter off the bat. You will need a pass rusher. Like, I love Abdul. He's my number 10 player, but that is also factoring in run defense. I think he's an adequate run defender. And other players at that edge position, I personally think, are better at the point of attack, stronger, and, overall just more efficient. So you can feel free to argue with me in the comment section below. Braden Swinson, I already mentioned this before. He didn't show up at the Shrine, which really pissed me off. And so I don't understand why. My LSU fans say that there's never really been anything bad about him. So maybe there's something else going on. Fingers crossed it's nothing actually bad, because obviously I don't want to be talking shit if, like, maybe there's some personal issues going on. And, like, again, hopefully it was more so like maybe he didn't feel well. Maybe he just was like nursing an injury back and didn't want to potentially like re-aggravate it. Like, maybe there's something like that involved. I think on tape, he is one of the most phenomenal players that I've studied. He is just a master technician. He was able to go up against guys like Caden Proctor and do phenomenally. I have an 88 or 83 minute edge video out, so feel free to go check that out for more in-depth information. But Braden could be falling noticeably, because I really don't appreciate the fact that he didn't go to the All-Star Bowl. But I digress. I think Abdul Carter is the best pass rusher in the class. I think that he is phenomenal. But if you're looking for someone to play every single down and be your alpha out the gate, I think that you do have some concerns there. And Abdul Carter's a great player, though. I will give him all the credit he deserves. But if I'm going for role-specific grades, Abdul Carter could easily be the number 1 overall player on my board. But I'm right now grading holistically. Not every team is looking for just a pure pass rusher with some like base run defense upside. Pick number 3, we have the New York Giants. And I want to go Travis Hunter here. It is what it is, but this team is in self-preservation mode. I think that Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward should be flipping spots. I honestly think that the best possible outcome is the Giants saying, would you accept a 3rd-round pick to move back to 3? And the Titans being like, yeah. And so the Titans get their 3rd-round pick. I know that's like extremely, extremely disproportionate to the value of that move up. But let's just say, a 3 and then maybe a next year 2 to move up to that spot. The Giants take Cam Ward. The Titans move down here, get their draft capital, and get Shedeur Sanders. But both these franchises look like they are gearing up to be able to take that QB spot. And so I will say that that's probably the most likely outcome. There's going to be some self-preservation going on there in New York, unfortunately. And it looks like they like Shedeur. Again, it's okay to say that you like somebody and not think that they're worth number 3 overall. Like, I think that's something that's been lost a bit in all of this like talk about whether Shedeur Sanders is good or not. I don't think anybody doesn't think Shedeur Sanders is good. Like, even the haters agree that he has talent, but it's whether he's worth a 1st-round pick that is now the discussion between the haters as well as like the realists. And when you add on the extra aspect that he is potentially number 1 or number 3 overall, that's when we hear people saying that he sucks, right? He sucks for a number 3 overall pick. You got to remember, when you hear people say that, that is what they mean. Now, I don't have Shedeur being or Cam Ward for that aspect, being worth these top picks. But when you factor in self-preservation, the vision of a franchise in the future, and the need and the value of the position, you could end up seeing it easily being this way. But I really do pray that, the Giants and Titans can work something out where we could flip the roles. And I think both the quarterbacks would have better careers in those instances. And number 4 for the New England Patriots, you got Travis Hunter here, who's the best player available. But you also have Mason Graham. Again, without trades, I'm going to be perfectly happy sitting and picking, and I'm probably going to go after Travis Hunter here. But I've heard a lot of people talk about how much they love Mason Graham, and I want to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on that if Travis Hunter is available. Like, I know corner 2 is not as valuable maybe to Vrabel as just an absolute like stud on the defensive interior, but I also do have my concerns about what if I'm sitting there in the 2nd round. Like, I'm not super happy with going after a corner like at the same rate I would be a defensive interior. But I also want to throw into the mix Tetairoa McMillan here. I know that you guys are a player for T. Higgins, and if T. Higgins ends up joining your squad, then obviously there's no reason to go after Tetairoa McMillan. But I think that corner 2 certainly is something that I would like to look at for the Patriots. I would also like to look at defensive interior for them. I would also look at wide receiver. So you guys are in a very good position. And then you could talk about tackle, but I don't think a tackle is worth the number 4 pick. As much as I love Josh Simmons, that's pre-injury, right? You still have to factor that in and, say maybe he's worth a number 10 overall pick, right? But, when you're looking at what's available here, I think you have to go after best player available. I think Vrabel's going to go after a defensive guy, even though Tetairoa McMillan might be the best choice for Drake May. I think that Vrabel is the one looking at the future. And he sees Travis Hunter as the best player available. And so we're going to go after it. So Travis Hunter is the selection there at number 4. Number 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm running this into the podium. Liam Cohen's going to be going after his Mike Evans 2.0. Drake London 2.0 as well, if you want to talk about that. But, Tetairoa McMillan is going to play a key role in this offense. And, when you add on to the fact that Brian Thomas Jr. already is one of the best young players in the NFL, you can have something that is an extremely elite dynamic duo for the next 4 years minimum, right? Then you add on to that you can actually give legitimate contract extensions, and you really could be having something there for a decade plus based on just 2 picks. Number 6 overall, again, there are no trades in this. We have the Las Vegas Raiders, and Mason Graham is actually really intriguing to me at this point. I will look at Will Johnson because Jacorian Bennett has been fully healthy. I think that you could go after a corner too. And so, you can't really go wrong at this spot. Mason Graham does kind of feel like a player that Pete Carroll would really like, and it is quite intriguing. For the quarterback route in the future, I would say 3rd round, I'd go after Will Howard. Pretty sure Chip Kelly is now on your squad as the OC, so we got to love that as well. Will Johnson's the best player available. Mason Graham is a stud. You can't really go wrong. And so, for the Raiders, I do know corners a route I want to go. I also know defensive tiers a route I'm perfectly happy going. And for the Jets and the Raiders, I might feel very comfortable, doing either route in the 1st or 2nd round, pretty much getting corner as well as defensive interior for them. Genty's the dark horse pick, of course. You get the Marshawn Lynch there for Pete Carroll, but I just don't really see the value respectively. As much as I love Ashton Genty, when you can end up getting someone like Will Johnson at this point. I'm going to go after Will Johnson here because I think having a lockdown physical corner will kind of give some Richard Sherman vibes in terms of the physical profile, because he's not the most athletic guy. And you think about Richard Sherman, he did not have the best athletic profile either. But I think Will Johnson applied athleticism is incredible. He has multiple pick 6s on his career. I think he had 2 this past year, by the way. This guy's incredible. And, he was plagued with some injury bugs throughout the year. But even with that, he shined in the game that I think mattered the most this year, which is Texas as well as USC. And he's someone who I think is truly special. I think Pete Carroll's going to be happy getting himself someone who has great ball skills, great physicality, and great IQ. At number 7 for the Jets, this is a run-in pick for me. This is Mason Graham. You need some help on the defensive line. Aaron Glenn's going to love that pedigree. Michigan dude as well. So, big fan of that. Mason Graham going to be the selection there at number 7. Let's keep it nice, short, and sweet. Number 8 for the Panthers. I've seen a multitude of picks at this spot. Malachi Starks could be looked at as a potential choice via traded down, not at number 8. I don't think it would be worth it. As much as I love Malachi Starks. You could also look at, James Pierce here. If we did have Will Johnson, that would be my dream selection. I love Will Johnson. But, I really do think edge rusher is the right route to go. People have talked about Micah Green as well. And I will say Mike Green did not measure out elite arm length for the NFL. So, when you're talking about, he ended up doing well at the Senior Bowl, but I do think it was extremely blown out of proportion because he had 1 rep versus Josh Connerly out of his native position. Kind of screwed Josh Connerly out of being a right tackle in the NFL, but at least early on. But, let's keep the excitement there, but understand the context at the same time. I really do like Mike Green. I do not think he's worth the number 8 overall pick. I think James Pierce is the best option. Michael Williams is going to test out like a freak. And as he got healthier, he got better and better. And that's something I love to see, by the way. He just continued to improve. Even this Notre Dame game, I thought he did phenomenally well. So I would not say it's all for naught, but I will be going after James Pierce here because I just deep down, I feel like people will learn their lesson and understand that, talent and applied physicality at a certain point matters more than just statistics on a screen. And even though he's 243, which I assume he'll be up 247, 250 by the combine, but let's just say he's 245. That's a little bit of a red flag. But then when you look at the fact that he is so physical, I posted this on my X page, he ended up holding up to Tyler Booker in the run game and literally collapsing a run lane. Tyler Booker, who is damn near 100 pounds heavier than him, his applied physicality is unbelievable. And you can always spot the people who genuinely have not watched James Pierce and haven't sat there and watched his reps only based on whether they talk about him as being actually strong or not. James Pierce is phenomenal. And I mean, he's my number 2 player in the class for a reason. I don't like light edge rushers at that rate. I mean, I love Dallas Turner, but he gives me very similar vibes to Dallas Turner. But apart from the Ohio State game where I actually think he was hurt, he was not playing the same rate. I was looking at Georgia. You're looking at Bama. Like, you look at these key games, and he shined. Florida, like, he shined. And he did a phenomenal job. And obviously, the pass rush statistics speak for themselves. But the thing is, he is so much better playing run defense than what you'd ever imagine. Look at that. That is the 90th percentile in run stop rate. And again, I don't make my opinions based off of those, but it supports the fact that when my eyes saw him good against the run, the numbers support it as well, which usually means that it's a solid probability of that being a good conclusion, right? So James Pierce, I think, is phenomenal. I'm going to give him the support until he ends up continuing to fall. Like, people are putting him at the end of the first. No disrespect, but you can kiss my ass. Like, if the NFL does that, it's safe to say, like, maybe I just don't belong in the NFL, and if, like, our types are that different. But my type is good players, good athleticism, like, good production. That's what I like with James Pierce. Number 9, New Orleans Saints. A couple good routes here. Mike Green is the dark horse pick, of course. The ghost of Dennis Allen could get us to go after Mykel Williams here. But I do think the dark horse pick, the biggest dark horse, is Tyler Warren, because Kellen Moore is going to be your head coach. And I'm probably gonna take this pick, by the way. I know I've had some people's eyes bug when I do it, and I want to explain myself here. Kellen Moore loves tight ends. Loves them. Probably going to be your head coach. If he doesn't end up being it, then this will absolutely change. But you have to look at this through the context of the head coach. And, Kellen Moore, going to have the keys to the franchise, so to speak, because he's going to be someone possibly coming off a Super Bowl victory. Whether you want him or not, there is a good chance he could be coming off a Super Bowl victory with a quarterback under 3,000 yards, right? And he ended up giving Dallas Goedert some of the best game, like, what was that, 170-yard game was like the best game of his career. And he's just someone who loves tight ends. So when you have the opportunity to have a player that is genuinely one of the best, and there's this argument, which is why Brock Bowers fell, and people are now realizing why he should not have fallen, where it's like, oh, you look at the savings of, like, what happens if you draft a tight end that's a top 5 tight end, which I think Tyler Warren would be probably in that 5 range out the gate. Like, Brock is number 1. I think Tyler Warren is a clear tier below, but I think he'd be the top 5 tight end in the NFL day one. And you look at it, it's like, okay, well, we're paying tight ends like $16 million a year versus, if we draft a receiver here and they're like a top 10 receiver, we're saving $20 million. Who's going to be giving up a top tight end? Like, especially if they are that cheap, no team. So don't give me that bullshit. You don't have access to a top 5 tight end. So I think that when you look at Kellen Moore, looking at also the fact that the Saints need somebody who's going to be a reliable jump catch threat, Tyler Warren opens up the offense more than anything. And again, we have another mock draft coming this week. If you hate it, drop your reasons why. And again, understand this is through the lens of Kellen Moore being your head coach, which I think is super duper key to understand that, hey, it's going to be kind of crucial for the head coach to get a guy that fits his vision. And I think Tyler Warren, I've seen him go at 5. I think that's bullshit, straight up. 7 is the absolute top, but the Jets have bigger issues, and I think Tyler Warren is going to be a great fit there for a head coach that overvalues, or not even overvalues, properly values a really, really good tight end. Number 10 for the Bears. Missed out on that Myles Garrett trade. If you guys missed that, again, go to the beginning where we discussed pretty much all the trade options for Myles Garrett. But I think that when you look at this again through the lens of the head coach, Ben Johnson, like, there's 2 routes you can go. You can go after, there's 3 routes. You can go after the running back, because I think Ashton Jeanty at this point, you look at the running backs of his caliber that have gone before. You got Bijan Robinson. I do think Ashton Jeanty's on that Bijan Robinson level. He went at number 8. Jahmyr Gibbs, talent-wise, very similar. Actually, technically worse coming out of Alabama, ended up being even better in the pros. Went at number 12, but almost went at number 6 overall. And then, of course, the guy who is a tier above Ashton Jeanty, which is Saquon Barkley, went at number 2. I think it's very realistic he goes here. And you look at a head coach that has had one of the best run games, including one of those players who went at number 12. It makes a lot of sense. But let's discover some other options here. And also, he was the last guy to get rid of DeAndre Swift. So just saying. You got Josh Simmons, who could play that guard role early on and be that long-term tackle over Braxton Jones. Not going to disagree with that vision there. But he is coming off an injury. I do think it's possible that teams feel a little bit hesitant when you have more of that guaranteed asset to your squad in Ashton Genty. Edge rusher, I don't see the value at this point. But again, you could always classify it. So it's edge rusher, offensive line, running back. That's where you're going to get your value. And Mykel Williams could be extremely fun. But I mean, if I'm going to be real, if you can get JT Tuimoloau in the second, Jordan Burch, who I am an absolute super fan of, like, as good of a running back class as this is, which is a really good one, I think it's equally as good as an edge class in terms of that day 1 to day 2 depth. And then offensive line, if you're looking at interior, there are a lot of very good players. So I will be going Ashton Genty here. Again, that's another reason why I've ended up theorizing that the Bears should make a heavy push for Myles Garrett. And I want my Browns and Bears fans to be able to tell me what's a deal that you'd feel comfortable with for your team with that trade for Myles Garrett. Like for me, Chicago, it would be first rounder, a second rounder this year, so 10, 41, and then a second next year. You can end up tossing some more stuff in there, absolutely. But like I feel like with a top 10 pick, that is noticeably more than what the other teams are offering. And I think that would be great for Cleveland. But you know, it could give you some pause. And it will be possibly something I do in this week's mock draft and send him to the Bears. So I do want to hear your thoughts on that. And for Cleveland, like, do you think that's adequate? I know it's always nice to get more, but you could sit there and be like, yeah, I mean, I'd want more, but I'd be perfect. I think it's reasonable. So let's continue on with the San Francisco 49ers here at pick number 11. The last time you drafted an offensive tackle in the first was 2018. Granted, it's at the same position you're probably going to try to draft this year. So I do think offensive tackle is one that Shanahan should be prioritizing. You drafted guard in the second. Why not go after tackle in the first? But I also think you guys could be looking at saving some money at edge as well. Mykel Williams certainly is going to be someone who I think could have that upside on this squad to be able to be a really good contributor. But again, similar to that argument for the Bears, I think the second round is more likely for that. Like I want to hear from my Niners fans. I do know my boy Guillermo talks about how the Niners don't draft offensive line in the first. I think that's a new era. I think that we can have some hope, you know, based on the fact that 2018 did happen and it was that same position and you guys still need to fix it. I think that Josh Simmons could be the good option here. Like people will talk about Will Campbell. Will Campbell could kick into guard and I just don't like his spatial awareness. We'll see what his arm length is, but you know, I do have my concerns with Will Campbell, respectively. Kelvin Banks, I don't love the foot speed. So if I'm going to go interior offensive line, I'm waiting. Like, I'd go Josh Connerly and put him at left guard and trade him to be the left tackle at that point. But Josh Simmons is someone who was the tackle one until he got hurt in week 7, excuse me. So he had 6 full weeks and showed versus legitimate talent, not a ton of it, but legitimate talent, that he was a superstar. And even in that Oregon game, I don't know why he's a 36-2 grade. I'm going to rock Josh Simmons this time. But again, I really want my Niners fans to like chip in and talk to me about what their vision is for their team. At 12 for the Dallas Cowboys, I do want Amari Hampton to this team, but I will change it up for the sake of keeping things fresh, right? You know, I try my best to like keep things relatively respectable, but also we could test out new theories and stuff. The Cowboys could be looking at tight end. I'd only do it if it's Warren. I love Harold Fannin, but again, if you're with the Cowboys, I don't think at number 12 it provides the value that you are looking for. Like wide receiver, like Matt Golden is so pricey at 12, and I love Matt Golden. Like if I'm sitting here and I want to go after best player available, like I'd look at Will Campbell to play that guard role, Kelvin Banks, and like potentially kick. Like Josh Connerly is a dark horse there and kick Tyler Guyton back to right tackle. Like this is my least favorite pick of the whole draft. I'm just going to be honest. I do not like this pick at all for the Cowboys. I don't. But if I'm going to stick true to what my board says and what I think people will start realizing is that Amari Hampton took a massive step this year. You look at it and it's like, okay, well, he had 160 more yards and 15 touchdowns, or the same amount of touchdowns. It's not like an statistical meteoric leap, but I think in the quality of his reps, I think he got so much better. And I mean, So much better. And I love that. Like, even in his last game, he went off versus NC State that has talent everywhere. They have really good talent everywhere. So I got to stick to it. I don't think anybody's worth this pick. Like, again, this is a no-trade mock draft, but I don't really think the value of the offensive linemen are going to be worth it for the Cowboys to select him here. I don't think edge rusher is going to provide the respective value that you're looking for. Like, technically speaking, you could look at a corner. Like, it is possible. But, I mean, I think that a top-end running back like Amari and Hampton, which, again, you could talk about the value of these guys at 44, could be much better. But I think Amari and Hampton is an absolute blue-chip back. And he could end up being a top 5 back in the NFL. Like, legitimately, we're talking about those guys. And the last time we had a top 2, like Hampton and Genty, they went at 8 and 12. I don't think it's out of this realm to say that, they can go at 10 and 12, respectively. 13, Miami Dolphins. Malachi Starks is the easy choice here, but I want to potentially look at a different option, which is defensive interior. Like, Walter Nolan could have squeezed himself into this position, but I also want to say, like, you guys brought up the fact that offensive tackle was taken with Austin Jackson in the first round, but guard was not. And the role that these players would be playing is a guard role early on. So I appreciate you guys for giving me both sides of the coin, and I do think that offensive line is a smart move, but something that you guys will not do based on the fact that, the role you're going to play, short range, is going to be guard. Greer's not going to do that. So I think we got to stick to the old but gold Malachi Starks, losing Poyer. No, excuse me. Yeah, it's Poyer. Poyer as well as Holland. And I think Malachi Starks is a great fit for it. Number 14, Indianapolis Colts. We've taken a lot of the guys I really like for this team, but there is one that ended up declaring, and don't know why he did, but it's hard for me to say no to Ben Morrison at this point. It's kind of like my dream pick for the Colts right at the moment. And you could talk about Mykel Williams, because I do think an edge rusher too is going to be actually very, very valuable. And tight end, don't think it's worth it at this point. I do think there's a respective drop-off. And so I'm actually, like, Nick Eamon-Wari is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But he's going at pick 17 if he's not going here. I'm going to go Benjamin Morrison for the Colts. I think a boundary corner, a true boundary corner 1, which he was number 4 overall before getting hurt this year. Like, he's faced the best of the best, and he's done a very good job at it. I would love to see him there in Indy and stay there in Indiana. And number 15 for the Atlanta Falcons. Another team that is technically a dark horse to trade for Myles Garrett. Not a championship contender, in my opinion, at all. I think that when you look at Raheem Morris, he appreciates, like, Ulbrich likes to go after guys like Mykel Williams. I think Mike Green would be more of the likely option there for Raheem Morris as somebody who could be doing a stand-up. Mike Green is over 250 pounds. I do not think he's 240. I was pretty sure he's 250. And he is at the height of his hype. He's going to test out very well. Like, he's a very athletic player. And so I think this is the dark horse move here. I think we got to go after Mike Green for the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's generated speed of power. Obviously 17 and a half sacks on the year. It doesn't say the half sack, but I'm pretty sure it's 17 and a half. But he's been very, very balanced overall. He's a player I like, but again, I do have my respective concerns, which is perfectly valid. Every human has their pluses and minuses. But Mike Green, I'm going to be going there to the Falcons at the top of his hype. I do think other players could work better, but in Raheem Morris's vision, I think he'll like the ability for Mike Green to put his hand in the dirt or stand up. At 16 for the Arizona Cardinals, just saw Matt Miller's mock draft, and he drafted 2 boundary corners for y'all. I am not going to do that. I think 1 boundary corner above 6 foot is going to be kind of key. And, I like Garrett Williams, what he's doing. Garrett Williams was like a top 10 guy for me coming into the year. I loved him, but not into this year, but into this draft year. And then obviously had some injury issues and then ended up being one of my favorite picks from that draft. Good to see that he ended up actually being as good as we thought. But I do think edge rusher still is a position we need to look at. And, as much as I like, technically Mike Green could have went Jalen Walker for the Falcons. I think Jalen Walker is more that player who is a pure linebacker who can play edge. Mike Green's that edge that is going to be playing a little bit closer to that role. I think Jalen Walker has a dark horse capability of slipping. As much as I love him, I mean, where is he at? He's number 12 on my board. I love him to death. But I do think there are legitimate concerns there. However, for the Cardinals, I still think edge is going to be the right move. I think Myles Williams, with the explosiveness, with the flexibility, might be the intriguing option there. And you could even drop him into coverage. He was one of the best players coming out in his class. I love the flexibility. I love the upside there. Shedeur Stewart, he ended up really improving over the offseason, and he's jumped up noticeably on my board. Nick Scorton's extremely reliable, but I think we'd be remiss to say Myles Williams would be slipping too far, because the NFL loves players like this. And Gannon, from a team that was notorious for being the Philadelphia Bulldogs, is going to love a player who you're pretty much buying low for a player that showed at the end of the year, when healthy, is worth a top 15 pick in the draft. So we're going to go Myles Williams there at 16. Again, no trades. Number 17 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's pick this up a little bit. Got your new defensive coordinator, Golden, from Notre Dame. Would love to have had Ben Morrison on the board, but he's not. And so I'm looking at the options available, and I love the idea of developing some edge talent. I just think we could easily wait. And I know it's like easier said than done, but defensive interior wise, you got McKinley Jackson, who I thought was actually doing not too shabby of a job, who I'm going to trust to continue growing and developing. And then you also have, why am I forgetting the Michigan kid's name? Chris Jenkins. Yeah, Chris Jenkins, he could end up doing a good job there as well. Not going to replace the defensive interior just yet. However, I do feel comfortable looking at Will Campbell and looking at him as a guard potential tackle replacement. I'm going to go after that route right now. Been pretty happy with it, and so I'm going to continue going that route, and we're going to select him there at number 17. Number 18 for the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of routes you can go here, actually, and you're actually in a very good spot. McDonald could get his guy in Shedeur Sanders here and use him on the interior as well as the edge. They like to have guys with positional flexibility, and I might throw that in as the curveball this episode, like the curveball. I would like to go interior offensive line for y'all, but again, it's a very good interior class. There's no reason to force it unless the value is perfect, which Banks could be great here. He could, but I think that the mobility on the offensive line, based on the offensive linemen that you do have, which again, yes, you want to replace them, but looking at the successful offensive linemen that you do have, which is Lucas when healthy as well as Cross, I would say athleticism matters a lot more than what Kelvin Banks provides. So I'm actually going to go after Shedeur Sanders here and go after the curveball, because his defensive interior capabilities at 280 is going to be awesome. He's 281, but I think he's going to be an absolute menace on the edge. In a coach like McDonald's going to love being able to use him everywhere and maximize his potential. And it gets me excited seeing that Shedeur could be with a coach that actually could maximize the potential. At number 19 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we're starting to look at a shift for Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka here, but I'm going to run this one to the podium. I'm going to go after Jalen Walker, who's a pure linebacker that could end up playing edge as well. We talked about Jahad Campbell there, but I do think this is where Jalen Walker will go because of the dual need, but also the fact that, edge rusher still is a capable position for you guys to draft after this. Technically linebackers as well, but Jalen Walker is not a polished edge. I don't know why people want to act like he's a polished edge. He's a good edge rusher. He's great at 76 overall, which would put him at number 30 right there with Myles Williams on my board. But at the same time, the guy still is extremely unpolished as an edge rusher. You're looking for day one impact at edge, maybe not going to be your guy. But I think he's an elite linebacker. Off the bat, off the rip, he'll be a top-end linebacker. And the Buccaneers need that. You need some stability there, and Jalen Walker can absolutely provide that and provide that pass rushing upside as he progresses into his career. At number 20 for the Denver Broncos, Luther Burden's going to be my quick option here. I think that there are certainly other choices. You could talk about Matt Golden, but Colson Loveland too. But I do think Luther Burden at this point, I know people are defending Marvin Mims on those bubble screens and saying it was successful. And you know what? To be fair, he was better than I expected at that. But I think that you could do even more. It's clear that Luther Burden could make the offense even better with that particular role, with his size. And, I see the vision for Luther Burden, so I'm going to go after that route. So I think that I want Mims to be someone who you can continue to do those bubble screens and such. I would prefer Luther Burden to be the primary option for it, though. At number 21 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're in a pretty good situation right now. A lot of very good talent on the board. And, I think we need a boundary receiver. We do. We've been drafting them after the first round for a long time. The last time we did it was 2000, and I believe 6 with Santonio Holmes. Worked out for us then. But we've been sniping a lot of dudes. Apparently, all those dudes have personality concerns. So maybe it wasn't us having a good eye after all. Maybe it was us just willing to take the risk. And so, except for Juju. Juju was a really good snipe. I love Juju. But Emeka Egbuka, I just want him to play in the slot, man. I mean, you look at the slot to boundary reps over the past couple years, man. And I'm not going to be the one to tell Brian Hartline he's wrong. I think it's a good fit. But when you have Matt Golden here, and he is someone who plays primarily on the boundary, he is someone who's 6 foot, 200 pounds, and he is somebody who is absolutely freaking dynamic. Let's take it. Let's take the risk. I think he pairs up well with George Pickens as well. And, you know, he's someone who had a lot of success there at Houston, has great after the catch ability, and he's someone who could continue that there in Pittsburgh. And number 22 for the Los Angeles Chargers. Emeka Egbuka would be fun. I would honestly think that, you know, you could end up kicking Ladd McConkey to the boundary. But at the same time, I do think it's kind of hard to let, you know, your former relationship with Colson Loveland go to the wind for an Ohio State wide receiver. Passed on it last year with Marvin Harrison Jr. Could see him doing it again this year by going after Colston Loveland, who, I mean, Will Dissly is one of the primary reasons why, like, y'all ended up losing all that momentum. Could have had a much better chance in that playoff game. So Colston Loveland, he's reliable, absolutely reliable. 3.4% drop rate, I think, is perfectly respectable given the offense and the quarterbacking he had. At 23 for the Green Bay Packers, you know, again, I think this team's actually probably going to be in the market for Cooper Kupp, which probably will be like a 5th round pick, if I'm just going to be real. Like, he has his, I can't believe this, but it's true. He has as many 1,000-yard seasons on his career as Kenny Golladay does. So it's there. But people want to talk about edge. Again, we talked about him like the Packers being a primary option for Myles Garrett in the current news. But you just fired your offensive or defensive line coach, and that shows that you're not necessarily mad at the defensive line. You're mad at the fact that coaching didn't get the most out of them. And Marcus Whitman ended up saying this very well. It's like, you guys are in a position where you have a lot of untapped talent. It's like, you don't need to add more talent in there and give up when you have areas that you can get really good value and you could end up having a lot of success. Jeff Hafley likes physical corners. And Azareye'h Thomas, I don't know why people are not calling him like as high in the first, which actually I lied, because at 26, Matt Miller took him to the Rams. But Azareye'h Thomas is literally what you look for. Like, he had a pretty big struggles on days 1 and 2 of the Senior Bowl, but he ended up working on his pad level and ended up having a really, really good day 3. And the Packers need big, physical, and reliable boundary corners. I'm going to go Azareye'h Thomas there out of Florida State. At number 24, we got the Minnesota Vikings. And interior offensive line, corner, running back, defensive interior. Can't go wrong with any of those. Except for running back, because we already took Omarion Hampton. So if Omarion Hampton's there, that's the running back I would consider for you guys. But I'm looking at Tyler Booker. I love Tyler Booker. I think he would be an instant upgrade. I think he's one of the safest players in this entire class. But I also see that corner position, and I do think you need to look at somebody who could end up being a top-end corner. And that top-end corner, to me right now, based on the Senior Bowl week, is Max Hairston. He's been playing injured all year long, man. All year long. Like, he's not been himself, and he finally was at the Senior Bowl, and I thought he was phenomenal. I don't know if I'm ready to take him at 24 just yet, but he has the physicality that I think that you guys will absolutely adore. But the player I'm actually going to toss in here as well is Darian Porter. Darian Porter is a little bit older. He's 24, but he's also relatively new to the position, but he's going to be running in the 4.2s. And that's according to some reports. So, I mean, hell, worst case scenario, apparently 4.3s. At 6'4", technically I think he's 6'2" and like 3/4, something like that. And he's about 200 pounds. And he was the best corner there at the Senior Bowl. Like Max Hairston, Darian Porter, Azareye'h on day 3, like, and then Trey Amos. Like, a really good group of corners. I don't think you can go wrong. And Darian Porter has quick feet. He's a former wide receiver. Great ball skills. Honestly, if you want to switch to the two, like if Packers fans, you want Darian Porter, feel free to. I'm going to go after Darian Porter here, though, and say he ends up going in the first round. Also used to the elements there in Iowa State. But again, he's rumored to be in the 4.2s at 6'3", like just about 6'3", just under 6'3", and extremely fluid feet. Just going to say, has all the makings for a top-end corner. Who gives a shit if you're 24 years old? If, like, you're new to the position, to me what matters is your total reps, right? Like, how good are you for how new are you, right? Or how new you are, I should say. And Darian Porter is through the roof in terms of talent level for the experience he has. And I love that to death. Again, the ball skills are incredible as well. 25 for the Houston Texans. This is another one where, again, I could easily go Kelvin Banks here. Technically could have done that for the Vikings right there too. But, again, interior offensive line, it is what it is. I want to go Emeka Egbuka, but I just can't pass up on Kelvin Banks at this point to play guard for us. I love Emeka, but you can't. For the Rams, they're thinking about getting rid of Cooper Kupp. Ended up mentioning it before. I'm actually going to look at Emeka Egbuka here. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Like, you can use him literally in the same role. You got Puka, Emeka, that you could talk about Whittington, Demarcus Robinson. I think that's a really good combination. And the more you let them slip, the more they become primary threats for teams that are in the playoffs that are going to be looking to lurk. And so we're going to go Emeka Egbuka there, assuming that Cooper Kupp is moved on from. At number 27, we got the Baltimore Ravens. And good choices everywhere. Like, literally can't go wrong. Technically, it could have went Connerly for the Rams, but I think I'm actually going to go Connerly for the Ravens. You're going to use him at guard in the short run unless you can't bring back Ronnie Stanley, which, again, I want to emphasize this. Like, by the way, this is going to be the move. I want to emphasize this. Connerly is now like looked at as like some bum because he ended up having that rep versus Mike Green. The dude was playing right tackle in that rep. How many reps do you see him playing right tackle in all of college? So he's played 2 reps there. Doesn't mean that he should be that bad at right tackle, no. But he was voted the best offensive lineman there by the people who he played against. And when he played left tackle, which is the role that you're going to be using him for, he was damn good. That's why I had him at number 7, and he might slip a little bit because, again, I mean, you reduce some of that positional flexibility, and he did not end up being as dominant as a number 7 overall player. But, I mean, hell, as a top 15 guy on my board, I'll be perfectly happy with Connerly there. And at 27, shit, I can't say no to that. At number 28, we got the Detroit Lions, who missed out on Myles and Garrett in this saga. And so, I'm looking, and edge rusher is super key. I think at 60, we could easily snipe someone as well. But, I mean, if you're looking at a build very similar, and he's going to be going at the next pick if I don't take him here, to Myles Garrett, it's going to be Nick Scorton. He's over 270 pounds. He is extremely fluid. I love him to death. I don't know why there's been this big prospect fatigue on him, but Nick Scorton's going to be a great option there. At 29 for the Washington Commanders, again, another team that missed out on the sweepstakes for Myles Garrett. Not officially, again, in this mock draft simulation. You guys definitely will be looking at receiver, which I don't think anybody's worth it. The closest guy would be Jaden Higgins. That'd be the closest. He was phenomenal at the Senior Bowl. By far the best receiver there. So I do think it's a dark horse position for you, or a dark horse player to go in the first. But I do think that you also should be looking at edge rusher. I don't know why JT Tuimoloau is looked at as a non-first round player. Seriously, no clue. Jack Sawyer all of a sudden is a guaranteed first, but JT, who did just as well, if not better, is on the fritz. So I think JT's better. I know a couple people who think JT is better. The numbers don't necessarily support it, but I personally think the eye test supports it. I'm going to go after JT Tuimoloau for the Commanders and give yourself another player similar in terms of overall size, but not necessarily the body comp that we see Myles Garrett have, but just a true solid edge setter there for the Commanders. I would have looked at corner as well, but we'll look at what's there in round number 2. At number 30, we're back with the Cleveland Browns. We've already gone after Abdul Carter, and at this point, Walter Nolan's intriguing, right? You got Mike Hall and Walter Nolan as a 1-2 duo. That'd be kind of ridiculous. But I also think that tackle certainly is on the mind. And I think Donovan Jackson could be perfect for it. He was a really, really solid tackle. Really solid. Especially, again, talking about the, conflation we're talking about Darian Porter, conflation of experience to performance. Donovan Jackson went through the roof. His first experience was versus Abdul Carter. He got a 0 grade in pass blocking that game. But, I mean, for the fact that this dude, look at that. How was this? From 10 to like 16. It took him 6 games to really, truly learn the position versus top-end edge rushers. That is awesome. And in the biggest moments, he shined the most. I don't think you can end up saying that Donovan Jackson cannot be a first-round pick. He's an elite guard who has the potential to be an elite tackle. You went to Ohio State before for a player who almost is the exact opposite of Donovan Jackson in DeJuan Jones, who, like, Donovan Jackson's an athletic freak who is extremely flexible and is going to be great. You need to take the risk on that. He's going to be an upgrade nonetheless. But on top of that, he's just somebody who has ridiculous talent and flexibility. At 31 for the Cleveland Browns, the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm looking heavy into Walter Nolan right here. I don't think there's another player, even Tyleik Williams that I love to death, that would be over Walter Nolan for the Eagles, because when you look at the role that Walter Nolan's going to fill, it is like hand in glove Milton Williams. Like, I almost would comp Walter Nolan to Milton Williams. So I think Walt deserves this pick, and we're going to take him here. Walter Nolan goes at pick 31. Number 32, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. And remember, good players fall. It is what it is. Gray Zabel is someone who I just wanted to fit into the first round and probably would via trades, but not going to happen today. I'm not going to go after Armand Membu. We're not going to go after a tackle for this team. I'm going to just go after players that I think would be a massive asset to this team. And, oh man, Jahad Campbell would be kind of ridiculous. But I do think that you look at corner, I think I've already depleted the corner core for the most part. I love Trey Amos, but again, I look at the defensive interior class that has legitimate top-end talents available. I'm going to take a swing on the best of the best, and the highest ceiling is Kenneth Grant. He's not the highest floor, but this team also, based on how you were playing, I think Kenneth Grant's floor can replace what you guys are currently operating with, and you have the ceiling of someone who is going to be 340 pounds and an athletic monster there, learning from Chris Jones. At number 33, we're back with the Cleveland Browns again. Donovan Jackson, Abdul Carter, really, really good dynamic duo there. And you could talk about Tyleik Williams pairing back up with Mike Hall. I love that idea. You got Trey Amos here. Like, you guys can't really go wrong with this pick. Again, you got the running backs that you could talk about here. I like going running back for you guys. Wide receiver, you could technically factor in as well. Oh, what do we want to do? What do we want to do? I do think a corner certainly is on the mind. With Trey Amos being a physical guy, you could look at the future there for sure. Again, Tyleik Williams, you can add him and just be like, you could have that dynamic duo that they did have before. I'd personally want to trade out of this spot. Just full, you guys can tell when I don't like actually sitting and picking. Quarterback, I don't think is worth it at all. Like, that's just not my thing. Shit. Like, maybe the running backs do go higher. I mean, running backs usually go higher than what we expect. So I'm actually going to debate going after a running back here at the top of the second, because I will try to take them more often. And I will say there is a drop off. Like, if you're looking at guys to be a consistent contributor, probably more than 15 touches a game, you got Quinshon, Caleb, Cam. Like, out of that, you got home run hitters here in Sampson and Henderson. You got Devin Neal, who's a really reliable RB 2 to 3. And beyond that, you do have guys like Jordan James, who I really, really like. But like, you start actually dropping off actually a lot faster than what I'm like thinking now that I'm sitting here looking at this. We're going to go after Quinshon Judkins here at the top of the second round. He is phenomenal. Ended off his career there. Had a hand injury, I believe, there versus Oregon, which kind of hampered him. But as he got healthier, he got better. Again, something that's super key. And in the playoffs, when it mattered the most, they improved the most. And he ended off his career with a 3-touchdown win in the championship game. So much love there for Quinshon Judkins. At number 34, we have the New York Giants, who ended up going after Shedeur Sanders in round number 1. A lot of really good choices here. You can't go wrong. But I think that going after a boundary corner like Trey Amos right now is the best bang for your buck. Siobhan Ravel's great, but Trey Amos is more healthy, even though he technically got hurt on the last day of practice. I talked to an inside source. He said it's not serious at all. He was just being overly precautious. At number 35 for the Tennessee Titans, we ended up taking Cam Ward in the first round. I personally think that we could end up actually looking at offensive tackle here. Like, right tackle with Armand Membu, a lot of people have faith in him to be a true right tackle. Could make a lot of sense. And worst case scenario, you get him as a guard. But I did hear they love Gray Zabel from an inside source. Like, they are looking to snipe him at the top of the second. So I don't know if it's like the best bang for your buck for Gray, but they also probably aren't expecting Armand Membu to be here, who's getting a ton of first round love, but we're going to select him there at 35. Good players fall. It is what it is. And number 36 for the Jaguars, took Tetairoa McMillan, round number 1. You can go Tyleik Williams here. You can go Siobhan Revell here. But I'm actually going to go after Gray Zabel here to play on the interior of the offensive line. Because, again, very, very, very similar situation to Armand Membu. Like, they fell because positional value and, we don't have trades. But Gray Zabel is the best player there on the offensive line at the Senior Bowl. Surprised he didn't get the award, but Josh Connolly got it. It is what it is. He was phenomenal. Can play center, can play guard. If Titans fans really want to go after Gray, go for it. Feel free to flop him, and I am going to be perfectly fine with it. At number 37 for the Las Vegas Raiders, went Will Johnson there in the first. Tyleik certainly is an option here. We could talk about Cam Scatabo at this point as a dark horse because of the fact that he is very similar to Marshawn Lynch in terms of his running style. Like, it is true. But you could also talk about wide receiver here with Io Maynor. Io Maynor's a good blocker. I do think that Pete Carroll's going to like him. And again, you could try to, look down the line. Is there anybody that could be similar to a Chip Kelly kind of receiver? I think the closest one would be Io Maynor. But you also look at Jack Sawyer, who can be playing edge for y'all. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, hell, in the second round, the value is incredible. Azarowaku could be there as well. Like, you got yourself your top-end corner. Like, you could try to continue rebuilding that defense and go on the later day 2 part to be able to pretty much fix everything else. Tyleik Williams is phenomenal, though. It's hard to say no to him. It's a tough spot. It is a tough spot. Azarowaku is great, though. I do think Jack Sawyer's work ethic is going to be a big thing for Pete Carroll. We're going to go after Jack Sawyer there and send him across from Max Crosby there for the Raiders. At number 38 for the New England Patriots, we took Travis Hunter in the first round to play defense, play corner for us primarily. We're going to look at, Tyleik Williams here as a primary option as a top-end defensive interior. But, man, could you just imagine Jahad Campbell paired up there with Vrabel, allowing Vrabel to use him as both a linebacker and an edge? That is sexy. That is. Offensive tackle-wise, let's review the options. You do have Trapilo here. You have Ursary. You got Belton as well, who's a big riser. I think Belton early day 3 would be the right move. Again, we went after Hunter. So, like, Io Maynor also could be a strong choice for you. Like, it would suck to go 2 defensive positions off the bat. But Tyleik Williams kind of is BPA. It's hard to say no to BPA. I love Jahad Campbell. Like, y'all know how much I love Jahad Campbell, Tyler Booker in this equation. Like, it is just impossible to say no to him. But actually, I'm going to throw a curveball in here. I actually really like the blocking style of Io Maynor. I think he can end up being their true wide receiver 1, 6'2", 210. Don't know why he didn't show up to the Senior Bowl. Like, that's kind of a head scratcher for me. Feel free to fill me in on that. But Io Maynor is that next guy outside of Jaden Higgins that I would expect there at 38. At 39 for the Bears went Ashton Jeanty in the first round. We're going to go after edge rusher, but we're going after Tyleik Williams here to add some beef, some girth on the interior of the defensive line. At number 40, we got the New Orleans Saints, and we went Tyler Warren in the first. I do think that is a very smart move, if I say so myself. I think after edge, like, the next move would be edge, and Ezuwaku, not really the athleticism, or not the physical build that maybe you want, but the value you can certainly enjoy. I love Jordan Burch to death. I think Jordan Burch is a superstar. I'm just going to call it out as it is. Have I updated my board to put where he's at on here? Did I? No. Damn it. So, okay. He's, actually I did. Okay, Jordan Burch, he's at 61. So, he's a freak athlete at 290, man. Like, he's awesome. But I think Ezuwaku could get a little bit more love at this point. No more Norman Lott, someone who I think deserves a lot of attention as well. But, Jahdae Barron at the same time, you could use him as a flexible boundary piece. He is like kind of the BPA option at the moment. He's just probably going to be a slot. It's hard to like nail where you're going to be able to take a slot. I do actually want to say, though, right tackle, not a bad position to address with Ozzy Trapilo. Like, your right tackle spot needs help. And Trapilo kind of worth it at this point. Legit right tackle, really good anchor. You know what? Let's do it. We're going to go full offense here. Ozzie Trapilo going to the Saints at 40. 41 for the Chicago Bears. Went Gentry and Williams. Honestly, at this point, I can't ignore this. I'm going after my number 10 or number 11 player in the class. I'm going Tyler Booker. Again, second round, you got to do what you got to do, man. I wanted to go after edge, but, there's a certain point where you cannot ignore it. 42 for the Jets. Went Mason Graham in the first. I'm going to look at Siobhan Ravel here. Top end corner, but, coming off an ACL injury, not a ton of experience overall versus actual NFL talent. He ends up falling to 42. 43 for the Niners. It's ridiculous. Jahdae Barron's here. I know. I have him higher than this, okay? But it's just, he's someone who's probably going to play safety or slot. That's what's up. And so, Niners in the first round went Josh Simmons. And I'm happy I did that because, got to get back to where we were. I'm happy with going after Josh Simmons because here I do feel comfortable going after a player like Ezraku. Don't know why Landon Jackson's that high. I'm just going to be honest. He wasn't that good. But, looking at guys, David Walker, not going to say he's worth it, but Oluwafemi, Femi Oladejo is incredible. I think someone was talking about him making a late season transition to full edge. So, he was off ball for a notable amount of reps. And so, I get it. But Femi was probably the best player there in Mobile on the defensive line for what was expected of him. APR was also excellent. This is a team that could pass on edge and get a really good player. It's a very good edge class. But it is also, Donovan Ezraku looks amazing in the Niners colors as it is. Just gonna say it as it is. And he's a really good edge rusher. And this team is looking for that. It's hard to say no. Let's take one last look at defensive interior. Got TJ Sanders, Omar Norman Lott, Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon has to be the pick. He has to be. Darius Alexander is too. You can't go wrong with this group here. Derek Harmon, though, super young. I think he's going to be a great fit as well. He's over 300 pounds. Just build up the trenches, man. Derek Harmon's going to be the choice. At 44 for the Dallas Cowboys, went Amari and Hampton. And I already hear the shit being talked. I love you guys. It is what it is. I'm willing to take it. But Darius Alexander is the guy who I think is going to be going really, really high. I don't know if the Cowboys would be in the position to take him, but I also want to look at wide receiver here and just totally retool with Jaden Higgins. 6'4", 215, boundary receiver. I think he is actually pretty damn close to a 6'4", remembering what his actual statistics were, but he had some of the longest arms there in the Senior Bowl. I think he's a super stud. I mean, he'll probably be going in the next couple of picks as it is. I don't think he can slip past, pick 49 or pick 51 for that matter. So, you know what? We're going to just totally retool the weapons on the Cowboys offense. We're going to go Jaden Higgins there and get yourself a big boundary possession receiver who actually is very, very nuanced. Again, he was my wide receiver 1 coming to the year. Might end up being my wide receiver 1 when all is said and done. 45, Indianapolis Colts. We ended up going Ben Morrison in round 1. Debating pissing off my Bengals fans royally and ending up going after Xavier Watts at this point. Just going to be real. Right down the road. Kind of hard to say no. I think I'm going to do it. We're going to pair up Ben Morrison and Xavier Watts again. And I know it's just God, that guts me because that's my dream first 2 rounds there for the Bengals. But great ball skills, obviously. Back-to-back years with 6+ interceptions. This dude's really damn good. And it works very well because I think the Colts absolutely could use a ball hawk in their secondary. And you completely retool your secondary to where your defense is going to become your primary asset. At 46 for the Falcons, again, you got Jahdae Barron here, and it sucks. But this is what happens in the draft. Good players will fall, and it's where are they going to go? I don't know. Falcons went Mike Green. You could put Jalen Walker there if you really wanted to. You could flop the Cardinals in their pick. Let's just be real. I think that's perfectly reasonable. But I'm looking at John Campbell at this point and saying, well, shit. We could double up at edge, but let's look at some other options here. Corner, Max Harrison's kind of nice, and he pairs up well with A.J. Terrell. I'm going to go Max Harrison. I was hyping him up in the first round. I'm going to take him here in the second. 47 for the Cardinals. Went after Michael in the first. I didn't take Jalen Walker. My bad. Ended up actually going after Michael Williams. But, technically speaking, you could swap Mike Green and Jalen Walker for the teams that selected them respectively in the Buccaneers as well as the Falcons in the first. But took Michael Williams. Could have waited and got Donovan Zerowaku. That's like kind of the risk that you run. But I mean, I would have loved Max Hairston at this point. I do think that the cornerback value outside of Quincy Riley had a really good Senior Bowl, and he ended up being voted best defensive back there. But you're looking at guys like Mac McWilliams as well. Like I forgot that he's 5'10", man. You don't need another sub 6 foot corner. Like Quincy Riley as well, sub 6 foot. Pretty sure he's like 5'10". Oh man, yeah, you guys are kind of screwed on the corner front, eh? But Max Hairston would have been nice. Pretty sure, yeah, he's over 6 foot. So there's that. We're gonna ignore that then. Rest in peace. But we're actually going to go after a punchy defensive interior here. Let's just, again, you guys know me. I love to rebuild the defensive lines. Omar Norman Lott was the most impressive, in my opinion. He is actually 295, not 315, which is 20 pounds lighter, but he was dominant. And I mean dominant there. He's my defensive interior 3 right now, tied defensive interior 2, essentially. I love him to death. I'm going to give him the nod here for the Cardinals. At 48 for the Miami Dolphins, went after Malachi Starks in the first round. Defensive interior certainly on the mind with like TJ Sanders, Darius Alexander. But right now, I'm looking at interior offensive line. You got some really good players here. And Wyatt Milam looked amazing on the interior. But again, how many interior guys are going to go? There's going to be a chance, like you're going to get good value on the interior of the offensive line. If it's not Wyatt Milam, it might be Gray Zabel, which I don't think so. But it might be Armand Bembu. It might be Booker. I mean, hell, it could be, Calvin Banks, Josh Connerly. Somebody good is going to fall to 48. And if you don't take him, I'm going to be pissed, okay? At number 49 for the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to debate just taking Jahdae Barron here for best player available and like just using him wherever the hell we want. Ended up going after Will Campbell in the first. Need to fix that defense up for sure. And so I'm going to go BPA. We're going to put Jahdae Barron to potentially safety, but we can use him as pretty much a Swiss Army knife, which honestly, I like Al Golden and the chances that he could do that. At number 50, we got the Seattle Seahawks, which would not have been a good spot for Jahdae Barron, so I'm happy I took him there. Shamar Stewart was the first round pick. We need to focus on the offensive line. And you got Ratledge, Wilson, but on top of that, you also have guys like Savania, Bo. You also now have Anthony Belton here. He got kicked out once for spitting on somebody, but this dude looked baller. And I mean baller as a guard. Like, really freaking good. And he also has the potential to play tackle as well. I'm debating taking him here at 50. I know it's a reach, but I'm going to go the more likely Mike McDonald route. I know the offensive line needs to be fixed, man, but I mean, Jahad Campbell's here. You just can't pass on him. You can't. Like, Jalen Walker was another option I was debating in the first round. Jahad Campbell, you just can't pass up at this point. I love Jahad. He literally is my number 15 player in the class, but that's for a team that can use him in a multitude of routes and a multitude of ways, and I think they absolutely could. 51, the Buccaneers took Jalen Walker as a linebacker in the first, and Ezeuwaku is somebody who I'm debating here in the second to play pure edge, and I'll be so happy if that's the case. Let's do it. I really, really, really like that. I think Jalen's better as a pure linebacker and can be in certain situations a really, really, really good blitzer. Ezeuwaku could be that every down edge rusher that you're looking for. At 52 for the Broncos, took Luther Burden in the first. We're going to go after Caleb Johnson here in the second. Technically, could go Cam Scatabo as well. You can't really go wrong here, but I want every down back that's just going to be hardcore, and that's what Caleb Johnson provides. Steelers took Matt Golden in the first, and, at this point, you could look at that QB route. I'm not. Running back, I absolutely think with Cam Scatabo could be a realistic option. My only concern is the fumbles. I don't know why they're not including fumbles as a metric on the analysis and stuff. Like, now here's a guy. Thanks guys. But I do know his fumble rate is abnormally high. That's my one concern. But I do think he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. He's a hardcore Arthur Smith kind of guy. And we've already drafted Matt Golden to open up the pass lane. I think Cam Scatabo needs to go in the second round. And he's going to go to one of these teams near the end as well. So I don't think that's like a sin to send him to Pittsburgh. Boundary corner-wise, I don't think that there's somebody here that will really like tickle our pickle, so to speak. Quincy Riley probably won't get that type of love, even though I think he should. Like, just bite the bullet. Probably take a corner first round if I'm just going to be realistic here. But we're going to go after Cam Scatabo out of Arizona State. to be our primary back. At number 54 for the Los Angeles Chargers, we took Colson Loveland there in the first. We're going to look at running back here potentially, but woo, this is the first time I don't get a cop-out, huh? I did not. I screwed myself over by taking Cam Scatterbo. That would have been fun. But I do think edge rusher absolutely should be on the mind. If we're thinking about them as a primary target for Myles Garrett, we should be looking at them as an option for the edge rushers. And looking at the guys who had really good weeks, Femi Oladejo is someone who I think is a dark horse talent. But Braden Swinson, man, he's my number 3 player on my board. Like, I fell in love with him, and I thought he was going to be like a UDFA kind of guy for me, if I'm just going to be blunt. Like, coming into it, that was my expectation. Blew my expectations out of the water. I was like, there's no fucking way. But this dude is just rock solid. He's a master technician, a little bit athletically limited, but when you're looking actually at like another player they have in Tuli Tuipulotu, I honestly thought Tuli and Braden had very similar strengths and weaknesses, like kind of relatively more polished and, more underrated. And that was the last round 2 edge rusher they took. We're going to go after Braden Swinson here. At number 55 for the Green Bay Packers, took Azareye'h Thomas in the first. And here at this point, we could look at the defensive line. Darius Alexander is right on the money, but you also could look at TJ Sanders. Edge rusher wise, Jordan Birch would be extremely fun to utilize on the squad. Again, so many good edge rushers in this class, man. Like guys who genuinely should be taking reps. But wide receiver as well. You got Jack Besh, Jack Besh feels like a Packer. Just a really, really good contested catch guy. We're going to show him the love he deserves. We're going to go Jack Besh in honor of Marcus Whitman going to that franchise guy, going to the Packers. Number 56, the Bills haven't had a pick yet because we got Myles Garrett. And, with Myles Garrett, that solves a world of hurt. I'm actually going to go after a player who, even when injured, balled the fuck out. And that's Jalen Rolls. Like every single one-on-one, this dude was just getting clean separation. And he's great after the catch as well. He's someone who can play on the boundary. And, you have him paired up with Coleman as well as Shakir. Ridiculous potential there. I really do think that when the medical is clear, like he's playing injured better than the player's healthy. That's ridiculous. 57, Texans, Kelvin Banks, round 1. And here in round 2, wide receiver would have been great with Jalen Rolls. You got Savion Williams. Honestly, I'd wait. You got Ricky White, who I love. Dante Thornton. LeJounte Wester. Shout out to him. Shout out to my boy. It's Keegs. Yes, my boy Keegs. And then you got Ja'Cory Brooks, Bo Collins. Like a lot of really good receivers in this class that you can take for much better value. I get Space Eater at this point. Like, I go after a Space Eater. I'm looking at Alfred Collins here, who's just, like, super high floor. I've heard some Josh Farmer love in this round, but I love Josh Farmer. I love his family as well. Got to meet his brothers. I'm not there with him yet, but Alfred Collins is just he's just ideal. I know you guys have done a great job with being able to, maximize defensive interior talent, but just get a long-term Space Eater, man. And Alfred Collins kind of solves a world of hurt. At number 58 for the Carolina Panthers, we went after James Pierce in the first. I already talked about the fact that corner is a little bit on the lighter side here in round 2. It is what it is. If you're not at the top, then don't focus on it. So another position I want to focus on is wide receiver. And you could also look at tight end as well. Like wide receiver, I did pretty much just say, don't go after it. Defensive interior wise, TJ Sanders is actually quite nice. And you pair him up with what y'all already have on the defensive interior. It could be something truly special. I love Darius Alexander, but it looks like everyone's higher on TJ Sanders. So out of realism, I'll go that route. 59 with the Ravens, went Josh Connolly in the first. I think you need to focus on some extra pass rush, potentially another weapon. You could look at that corner room as well, but I've already talked about it ad nauseum. Not worth it at the moment. Again, wide receiver wise, Savion Williams is that guy who I'd probably recommend for the Ravens because, to be fair, I don't really think they have a role for a player like Savion Williams on the Ravens. My hot take is that he falls, but he's somebody, again, having a 72% contested catch rate on his career, great after the catch, and at 6'5", looks good in purple. Definitely could be viewed as very highly. So I'll go at that route in terms of realism. Like Savion Williams, I think, provides a role in this offense that he wouldn't really provide at the same rate for the previous 2 teams. 60, Lions, went Nick Scorton, round 1, which, again, I think it's great. Here in round 2, I think we need to get a flexible interior offensive line piece. Let's look at the guys who are available. Jonas Avenilla right now is worth the role on the interior. Don't really like him as a tackle at all. So you're going to be drafting him as a guard, and he also could play potentially center as well. At 61 for the Commanders, took JT Tuimoloau in the first round. Wide receiver would have been nice here. Not the option. Corner would have also been nice. Not the option. So I will be honest, it's not a very great situation to be in if you're the Commanders. Like, we could actually double up at edge if we really wanted to. Again, corner, like, man. Like, I honestly would be waiting and selecting Jalen Smith for the slot. Like, that's how I'd roll the dice in this equation. Wide receiver-wise, you could go Isaiah Bond, take a chance on the health, and basically say you're getting a first-round pick here in the second because of health concerns. Usually is what you do in the third round. But, tight end, going to be real. Ben Sinnott might be a lost cause. You could end up going after some high-end tight end talent right here. We'll be selecting 1 or 2 of them at the end of this round. Honestly, Elijah Arroyo in the slot, Harold Fannin. I kind of like that. Like, you look at Ben Sinnott, he's an after-the-catch threat, not really necessarily a receiver. I honestly quite like Harold Fannin to the squad. You can't go wrong with having multiple tight end weapons. I'm going to throw a curveball here and say the best player available if you can't trade out is Harold Fannin. At number 62 for the Browns, Abdul Donovan Quinshon, tackle, edge, and running back. Good group right there. And here at 62, you could go after the quarterback, and I think Jalen Milroe is someone who will probably be drafted in the 3rd, if not the 4th, not the 5th. So I'm not going to go after that route because I think your new offensive coordinator is going to be great for him. I just don't think that you guys need to force that. But, another position, you could try to take a swing on Noel Williams to develop him because Noel is somebody who's really solid, but again, kind of more of that project there. Wide receiver, again, it's another team that could be a dark horse for tight end. Like, you could certainly be looking that route. You could go 2 tackles at this point because I don't think that's out of the question. DeJuan Jones, health-wise, might not be exactly what you're looking for. Also had a pretty down year. We could double up at edge, though. I mean, realistically, we were already looking at Abdul before we ended up trading away Myles Garrett. So, honestly, not a bad choice. Not a bad choice. I'm actually going to go Jordan Birch here. I think Jordan Birch is a stud, man. Actually, pull the reins back. Pull the reins back for a sec. There's a player I really love, and Nick Eamon-Warry. Got to make sure. We did not take him yet. So, like, Nick Eamon-Warry is someone who I actually kind of want to take here. It's not the biggest need for y'all, but that's actually really fucking good value. And I think he could be a first-round pick. But, again, he's somebody who did kind of taper off at the end of the year. And so Nick Eamon-Warry, 6'3", 230, is going to be the pick there with that free selection from Buffalo. 63 for the Eagles. I mean, honestly, we took Walter Nolan the first. Pass rusher absolutely should be on the mind. You got Jordan Birch, who's like an absolute physical phenom. But outside of that, I mean, again, you got Olu. How the hell do I say this? Oluwafemi Oladejo. And, I mean, he's played off-ball linebacker as well, so you already know he's going to be fucking baller. I'd probably try to take him in the 3rd. That's how I'd approach this situation. And I think tight end's super key. Elijah Arroyo is going to be the guy who I'm looking at. He's over 250 pounds. He's actually a pretty solid blocker. And I'm going to take him here because I don't want him going to the Chiefs there at 64. So I do want him, but if I'm the Eagles, I don't. So we're going to go Elijah Arroyo there at 63, who is an absolute standout there at the Senior Bowl. If the Commanders take Harold Fannin, or take Elijah Arroyo, I think Harold Fannin is a very underrated blocker, could easily be a legitimate option there for the Eagles as well. And at 64 for the Chiefs, took KG in the first. Looking at the corner route here in the second round, I might now feel more comfortable looking at like Quincy Riley, for example, who ended up having a really, really solid week there in Mobile. Outside of that, I mean, you could look at the linebacker in Carson Schwezinger. I mean, let's be real now. This guy is somebody who he like just finally got to take his reps, and like he has been doing an excellent job. So low key might be the option. So I'm going to look at that pretty heavily. Wide receiver, though, at this point, you go after, I mean, God, I don't like the receivers on the board for him, given the talents that they're like looking for. So I wouldn't go that route. Running back, Trey Henderson, to be fair. Trey Henderson's kind of the best value. We're going to go after Trey Henderson, get a home run hitter there. I think he complements Pacheco for the long run, as well as even Kareem Hunt. Like, really, really good group there. But there we go. I earned a reward. Thank you. I should have earned a lot of rewards. It doesn't add up to anything. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll give me a discount one of these days. But thank you so much for watching. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.